welcome to this brand new edition of Battle Cry with me, Shiv Aroor. This episode happens to be on popular demand. We've been flooded with messages over the last few weeks asking us to dedicate an episode of Battle Cry to India's nuclear submarine program. And we thought, no better time to do it than now. There's so much happening in the world, and India's nuclear submarine program is making very steady, very important progress. Take a look.
In a world pushed to the brink, they lurk beneath the depths.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire! Fire! Torpedo fired!
With assurance of swift destruction. In the world of nuclear submarines, India still has miles to go. But there are big plans in motion. Nation's biggest Atmanirbhar project. A deep dive into India's nuclear submarine plan. The big story on Battle Cry.
Just over a decade ago, I was among a select group of journalists who was taken to Visakhapatnam by the Indian Navy for the launch ceremony of India's most secret project. We now know it as the Arihant, India's only nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine, fully designed and built here in India. Well, you'll be happy to know that India's nuclear-powered submarine program, both ballistic missile as well as attack submarine program, are in progress. Take a look.
As the world watches, India is closing out the decade, but standing up a hugely hostile China in Ladakh. But there is another sinister intrusion this decade, from 7 years ago, that still has the security establishment in action mode. A solitary 2-month patrol by a Chinese submarine in late 2013 came as a rude wake-up call. China's most advanced SSN, a Shang class, conducted a 2-month anti-piracy patrol in the Indian Ocean, and nothing could be done about it. Indian intelligence assessments said the deployment seriously aggravated India's security concerns. And that's why, in early 2014, the strategic establishment blew the dust of a decade-old secret file. A file containing a proposal for India to build a fleet of ferocious underwater predators. India's first nuclear-powered attack submarines. 7 years later, Chinese aggressions in Ladakh and elsewhere have added urgency to the program. The case for 6 indigenously built Project 76 nuclear-powered attack submarines, displacing over 6,000 tons each and costing over 14,000 crore each, is now pending with the government and likely to move forward in 2021. Armed with torpedoes and cruise missiles that can strike targets on land and at sea. These submarines will be powered by nuclear reactors, assuring them tremendous speed and almost unlimited underwater endurance. The Indian Navy currently has just one nuclear-powered attack submarine, the INS Chakra, loaned from Russia, but needs at least 6. And that's where the Indian program comes in. Nuclear-powered attack submarines are like multi-role fighter jets. The Navy's INS Chakra, for instance, can run underwater at speeds of close to 30 knots. More than twice the speed of conventional diesel-electric submarines. Stock and hunt warships and attack shore targets. But like fighter jets, their performance lies in their propulsion plant. In this case, a high-output nuclear reactor which can cope with the tremendous bursts of sustained speed without degrading reactor output. While the Indian nuclear-powered attack submarine project will take some years, the Navy has opened up talks for the lease of another Aquila-class submarine from Russia for over $2 billion to replace the existing INS Chakra when it is returned in 2022 after the end of its lease. These agile, high-speed attack submarines are very different from the only indigenous nuclear submarine currently in India has one nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine in service, with a second to be commissioned next year. On the nuclear-powered attack submarine front, India has Russian Akula-2 submarine on lease. We'll be getting an identical one to replace it in 2022, and is meanwhile awaiting government clearance for a homegrown project to build 6 similar submarines in India. The true strength of nuclear-powered submarines, it must be always said, is when they don't need to be activated. It is their presence that deters the adversary. But with an adversary that has already tasted the saline waters of the Indian Ocean and is far ahead in terms of capability and numbers, India has a lot of catching up to do.
And on this very special edition of Battle Cry, we're very privileged to be joined by Commodore Anil Jaisingh, who's a veteran submariner from the Indian Navy. We also have with us Executive Editor of India Today magazine, Sandeep Unithan, who's been writing extensively and is a journalist who's actually broken successive stories on India's nuclear submarine and weapons program. Sandeep, I'd like to start with you because the news now is that not only is India's nuclear ballistic missile submarine program sort of getting into its groove. There's there is probably the commissioning of a second Arihant class submarine in the next couple of years, but there are others down the line, and also the very big development of the 6 nuclear powered attack submarine program that's awaiting clearance from the government.
Yes, absolutely, Shiv. There are 2 parallel programs to build nuclear submarines. The first, as you mentioned, is the Arihant class ballistic missile submarines. And the second is a project to build 6 nuclear-powered attack submarines, or SSNs. Now, the Arihant class, just to give you an idea, is something like a bomber. And the SSNs, the attack submarines, are like fighter jets. Now, we have the Arihant class. One is already in commission, is on deterrent patrol. You have a second one, the Arihat, which will be joining sometime next year. And you have 2 more after that, the S3 and the the S4 and the S4 Star. That makes it a size of 4 ballistic missile submarines. Now, the challenge now really for the Navy is going to be to develop the nuclear-powered attack submarine, because that is a completely new project which you're going to start from scratch. It's at an advanced stage of design, we're told, and it should be approved very shortly. But it's going to take a long time for this to enter service. Now, the attack submarines, we ideally would like to have a fleet of 6 nuclear-powered attack submarines. We have only 1, presently. That's the INS Chakra on loan from Russia. And when the INS Chakra 2 is returned, you'll have the INS Chakra 3, which is under refit there in Russia. So effectively, you're looking at a decade without nuclear-powered attack submarine. You're only going to have one, because by the time the SSNs come in, once the design is frozen and construction begins, it's going to take something like 7, 8, probably even 10 years to be inducted into service. Shiv?
Very, very important point. So there is going to be a void before they actually enter service. Commodore Jai Singh, how important in your view is this fleet, this initial fleet of 6 indigenously designed and constructed nuclear-powered attack submarines? The ballistic missile submarines, are making progress. Construction is on. So there's movement on that front. How important is this proposed fleet of nuclear-powered attack submarines, sir?
Yeah, it's very important to differentiate between the two. The ballistic missile submarine, the SSBN, the Aryan class, are not really weapons of war. They are weapons of deterrence. They provide the country a very credible second strike capability and are a deterrent from a preemptive strike from an adversary. It is the attack submarine, the SSN, which Sandeep mentioned, which is really the teeth of a blue water navy. And if India really wants to project itself as a blue water navy with a carrier battle group force on either seaboard, then nuclear attack submarines are an absolutely integral part of that force structure. And attack submarines, you see, the advantage attack submarines have over the regular conventional submarines is that, firstly, you have a nuclear reactor, so you have unlimited endurance and speed, which is basically overcoming the handicap that conventional submarines have in terms of open ocean operations. Because of its speed, the SSN can accompany a carrier battle group. Besides, of course, it has a very potent weapon capability with tube-launched cruise missiles, with land attack capability, so they can completely shape the maritime battle space in a way.
Given how long nuclear submarines have existed in the world, their birth during the Cold War, the fact is India has been quite a late entrant into the nuclear submarine club. But having entered it, India is going full force and in top gear to build these submarines indigenously. But what is the importance of nuclear-powered submarines and what role do they play in an uncertain world? Take a look.
Nuclear submarines sound dangerous and fancy. But in an unpredictable world, they play a terrifyingly specific role. Diving the depths of ocean, modern-day nuclear submarines are virtually impossible to detect. Hiding deep, the strategic variety carry long-range nuclear missiles, giving a nation the devastating last word in an unthinkable nuclear conflict. These submarines are the most critical part of the nuclear triad, the most sophisticated and deadly military hardware ever built. A little history first. 1954, the commissioning of world's first nuclear submarine, USS Nautilus, opened a new paradigm. Now powered with a very small quantity of nuclear fuel, these subs could operate completely submerged at high speed, indefinitely, and thereby change the rules of the game forever. Submarine-launched ballistic missiles, these black giants are the ultimate deterrent. But it's not just the deadly, accurate weapons in its arsenal or its stealthiness. What makes them the most vital cog in the security matrix is its ability to hit back, and hit back hard when all other options are not available. Nuclear submarines complete the nuclear triad. As the name suggests, it consists of three-pronged nuclear capability. These components are land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, strategic aircraft armed with nuclear bombs and missiles, and last but not the least, submarine-launched ballistic missiles. In a worst-case scenario, military planners have ranked the nuclear submarine the most secure leg of the nuclear triad, which ensures the capability of a second strike, ensuring a nation's nuclear deterrence.
Stand by. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire! Fire! Torpedo fired!
A submarine is a perfect weapon, carrying weapons of mass destruction in its belly and capable of giving the knockout punch to the enemy without ever being detected in an unthinkable situation of a world in a nuclear war. But again, nations are wary of the fact that, like the mythical Brahmastra, nuclear weapons, the most destructive weapons which cause unspeakable human suffering, should never be used and should remain only as a deterrent.
Now, speaking specifically of India's nuclear deterrent, the third leg of the nuclear triad are nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines, or SSBNs. We've already told you about the Arihant, and we've also told you about how there are many more coming up. But these submarines ultimately are only platforms. It's the nuclear weapons that they carry which are the true deterrent. There are already 2 weapons that are operational, but there are 3 more coming up that are even more devastating and even more crucial to India's strategic messaging to the world.
The American Trident and the Russian Bulava, 2 of the world's most destructive missiles. Both weapons of mass destruction, last resort options, launched from lurking nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines, or SSBNs. We've just given you a comprehensive overview of India's own SSBNs, and now we tell you about their current and future weapons. India's sole current SSBN, INS Arihant, carries 4 of this missile you see here, the K4. The missile, a derivative of the Agni-3, is nuclear-tipped and operational with India's nuclear deterrent. Sporting a range of over 3,500 kilometers, an extended range version called the K5, a derivative of the Agni-5, is also understood to be under development and could be tested soon. The second is the K15, officially designated B5, commonly referred to as Sagarika. The nuclear-capable K-15 is also active on INS Arihant and sports a range of 750 kilometers. But the true deterrent, an intercontinental range ballistic missile for India's SSBN fleet, is taking early steps towards development testing. In 2017, the DRDO flagged off its K6 SLBM project, a missile with an ICBM-like range of 6,000 kilometers. This three-stage solid fuel missile is said to be completely different from the K4 and K5. It will be ready in a few years from now. These new missiles, over 12 meters tall and over 2 meters in diameter, will carry a 3-ton warhead. The K6 will ensure that the future Indian SSBN's bastion area will be within the Bay of Bengal, from where it can target all its potential adversaries. So while India's nuclear submarine deterrent is being developed at full speed, its nuclear teeth are in top gear as well. As always, the true strength of such weapons is in India never having to need them. Because should such a situation come to pass, it would mean that the world is already in an apocalyptic war.
Commodore Jaisingh, like you were mentioning, it's important to differentiate between SSBNs and SSNs, and we've got graphics on our show differentiating between the two. The Arihant class submarine, Sandeep and I, were there in 2009 in Visakhapatnam when the government of the day had taken a select group of journalists for the launch ceremony, and now we hear that a second Arihant class is likely to enter service sometime in the next 1.5 years. What is your view and your assessment of what India has achieved on that front?
Yeah, you see, INS Arihant was actually initially a technology demonstrator. It was called the ATV, the Advanced Technology Vessel. And I think this was a path that India had to take. It took a while in happening, but that is not surprising because this is one technology that we had to develop ourselves. It was a technology no one else was going to share with us.
Yes.
And SSBNs traditionally, even if you look at the navies which have been operating them for the last 5 or 6 decades, whenever a new class is being introduced, it generally takes longer than anticipated because of the complexity of the platform. An SSBN is considered even more complex a platform than a spaceship. So for that kind of complexity, and it's not only about the submarine. You see, submarine is just one aspect of it in a ballistic missile submarine. It's about the ballistic missile. It's about the nuclear reactor. It's about the command and control organization that you need to be able to deliver that strike thousands of miles away from your own port,
Absolutely.
Hundreds of meters below the sea. So it's a whole ecosystem which has to be put in place before you can really claim to have a credible nuclear deterrent. So India has been very successful with the Arihant. You remember, in 2018 they successfully completed the first deterrent patrol, and so it's natural that the next boats as they come along will be bigger, will be better, will be more lethal, and will have a more powerful role to play.
I'm sure we're going to do many more shows about submarines, but this was by popular demand. Our viewers wanted us to do one on nuclear submarines, so I couldn't have been more privileged to have both you, Commodore Jaisingh and Sandeep, join me on this edition of Battle Cry. Thank you so much for joining me, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
And please always remember that these are weapons of mass destruction, and these are weapons that are deterrents. They're supposed to keep the peace and not ever be used in war. That's the whole point of nuclear weapons, if at all. Thanks so much for watching Battle Cry. As we always say here on the show, India's true strength will only be realized when no human needs to be sent into war and no weapon fired. Thanks for watching.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.